Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moten.
And I'm Janae Norman. Here are the top 5 things to know this Friday. Number 1, the Ukraine scandal intensifying.
A senior advisor to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has resigned amid growing frustration over the treatment of the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, who is expected to testify today in the impeachment inquiry.
Lawmakers also want to hear from 2 of Rudy Giuliani's associates linked to Ukraine who are under arrest, charged with campaign finance violations.
Number 2, the wildfire emergency in California.
Overnight, another fire spread in northern Los Angeles where trucks were burning at a Frito-Lay warehouse in Sylmar, threatening homes and jumping across the 5 freeway.
And Thursday, dozens of mobile homes near Los Angeles were destroyed. High winds and dry conditions have prompted precautionary power cuts to prevent wind-blown power lines from sparking more fires. More from Los Angeles in just a few moments.
And meanwhile, on to number 3. It looks like winter in Colorado. Driving was treacherous with snow and a temperature that dropped 64 degrees in one day. But the worst conditions will be in the northern plains this weekend. Parts of the Dakotas and western Minnesota could see up to 2 feet of snow.
We head to Dallas for number 4. New information about a terrifying Ferrari crash involving pro boxer Errol Spence. Police say the 29-year-old was speeding and not wearing a seatbelt when his car crossed the median to oncoming traffic. Spence was ejected from the car. He's hospitalized in stable condition. His family says he is expected to make a full recovery.
And finally, number 5, a single mother just declared that marijuana makes her a better mom, and she's not alone. In a new essay for Parents Magazine, writer Leah Campbell explains how microdosing on pot helps her cope with chronic pain and the stress of parenting.
Microdosing is taking small amounts of marijuana in edible form, and Campbell says it turns her into the best version of herself.
It eased it, helped it fade away enough that I was able to go on walks with my kid, and I was able to take her to do fun things. And then as the anxiety eased off too, so did my irritability, so did my crankiness.
Health experts say more mothers are now microdosing as marijuana is legalized in more states, and they're joining online communities to talk about it. Parenting's hard.
It sure is. I mean, I'm not one. I'm just Uncle K-Mo. Good Friday morning, everyone. And let's get right to that flood of new developments surrounding the impeachment investigation as lawmakers prepare to hear today from the former ambassador to Ukraine.
If she's allowed to testify, her appearance would follow the arrest of 2 businessmen linked to the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. They're accused of making illegal foreign campaign contributions to buy political influence. Meanwhile, overnight, we learned that a top advisor to the Secretary of State is resigning in frustration.
ABC's Megan Tevrizian is here with the latest. Megan, good morning.
Good morning, Kenneth and Janae. Several developments overnight. News that a top advisor to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is resigning came just hours after 2 of Rudy Giuliani's associates were arrested. Meanwhile, today, all eyes will be on Capitol Hill to see if the State Department allows a woman at the center of the Ukraine scandal to testify.
Former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, expected to appear before closed-door deposition today, testifying before 3 House committees looking into whether or not the president committed impeachable offenses by asking a foreign country to investigate the family of his political rival, Joe Biden. But the State Department could demand she not appear, as it did earlier this week with Ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland. Yovanovitch was removed from her post in May after coming under attack from President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Her recall amid growing frustration at the State Department that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has done nothing to defend Yovanovitch's post. Federal prosecutors say these 2 now indicted businessmen with ties to Giuliani also wanted to force her out. Lev Parnas and Ignor Fruman arrested Wednesday at an airport.
They were about to board an international flight with one-way tickets.
They're now charged with illegally funding campaign contributions, including some from Russia to a PAC supporting President Trump and other candidates.
Take a victory.
These indictments seemingly energizing the president. At a rally last night in Minneapolis, Trump saying the impeachment push would produce a backlash at the ballot box, saving some of his most intense attacks for political rival Joe Biden.
He was only a good vice president because he understood how to kiss Barack Obama's.
During that rally, the president did not mention Rudy Giuliani or the indictments. The president said yesterday that he does not know the two men who were arrested, even though he took pictures with them in the past. Rudy Giuliani ate lunch with both men in Washington just before their arrest, but he says he cannot comment on their indictments. Janae.
All right, Megan, and we'll be following that. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Moving on, House Democrats have now subpoenaed Energy Secretary Rick Perry as part of the impeachment investigation. They want information on his interactions with Ukraine, but a White House official tells ABC News Perry will be ordered not to cooperate. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials tell ABC News that ICE removed about 260,000 unauthorized immigrants in the 2019 budget year. That's only a slight increase from 2018 and lower than peak annual totals under President Obama.
The acting director of ICE said in a White House briefing that police departments of sanctuary cities refusing to cooperate with ICE and the resource drain from the humanitarian crisis at the southern border have partly driven the dysfunction within the country's deportation force.
We've had to redeploy our ICE resources to support the Border Patrol and Customs and Border Protection with those challenges at the border, which has made us less safe.
He said heightened rhetoric from Democratic politicians continue to cause problems for public safety, but ICE's critics and even some law enforcement professionals place the blame on the White House, citing the administration's policy of focusing on non-criminal immigrants.
Senator Bernie Sanders says he's not a quitter and that he never considered dropping out of the presidential race after suffering a heart attack last week. Sanders is recovering at his Vermont home. He tells CNN that his heart did suffer some damage, and he characterized his recovery as so far very well. Sanders says he's likely to visit several early voting states after attending next week's Democratic debate in Ohio.
So we've struggled really hard to get to where we are right now, bring millions of people together in the fight for justice. And I'm not a quitter. And, I had, adversity.
How are you feeling, Senator?
Sanders also said he's been told by a cardiologist that he's on the road to a full recovery. He says going forward, he's going to watch his diet more carefully. Now to the wildfire emergency in California. Dozens of homes near Los Angeles have been destroyed as high winds and dry conditions fuel flames across the state. And overnight, another fire spread in northern Los Angeles where trucks were burning at a Frito-Lay warehouse in Silmar, threatening homes and jumping across the 5 freeway. Overnight, homes engulfed in flames as a fire tears through this California neighborhood, destroying more than 70 mobile homes east of Los Angeles. Students at a nearby school were forced to shelter in place, then rushed to another school out of harm's way.
School is evacuated immediately. Imminent threat as well. The
cause of the fire, seen in this doorbell video, was a garbage truck, seen with smoke pouring out of it.
My understanding is a trash truck that had a trash load that caught on fire. The trash load was dumped off to the side of the road, ignited the vegetation, and then obviously the fire spread from there.
These fires are exactly what so many feared, with heavy winds and dry conditions creating an extreme fire threat. Utility companies took preemptive action, cutting off electricity to hundreds of thousands of customers across California, trying to avoid a repeat of past disasters like the deadly Camp Fire last year, which was sparked by downed power lines. In the Bay Area, some communities have now been given the all clear, meaning after days in the dark, their power could be back on soon. But the threat remains high in many other areas. Fire forced people in one neighborhood to evacuate, even though their power had been shut off hours earlier.
My daughter came running into our bedroom screaming the hill is on fire.
No word on the cause of that fire. This morning, the governor is taking aim at the state's largest power company, PG&E.
They chose not to modernize their grid over the course of many, many years. It led to their own demise. It led to bankruptcy. What's happened is unacceptable, and it's happened because of neglect. This can't be, respectfully, the new normal.
PG&E's CEO is apologizing, admitting the company was not adequately prepared for the mass shutoffs this week.
So we faced a choice here between hardship on everyone or safety, and we chose safety. And this is not how we want to run our business. We're actually in the business of providing power, not taking power away.
Before all power can be restored, PG&E says 25,000 miles of power lines need to be inspected.
It's 20 years in prison for the killer in a deadly parking lot dispute. Michael Draka shot Marquise McLaughlin last year, claiming he was upset McLaughlin was in a handicap spot. McLaughlin, who was black, was unarmed. Draka was set free at first under Florida's Stand Your Ground law.
Overseas, the death toll is mounting in Turkey's military assault on America's Kurdish allies inside Syria.
As civilians flee for their lives, President Trump was pressed on what the U.S. should do in response. ABC's Ian Pannell is in the region.
Turkey's army pounding Kurdish targets in northern Syria. The US-backed allies, who lost 11,000 soldiers in the war against ISIS, are now fighting for their lives and homes, facing attack from the air and on the ground. Turkish-backed militias seen barreling their way into Syrian villages. At least 23 Kurdish fighters killed, and now reports children on both sides of the border among the dead. This family mourning the loss of their son. But the Turkish president defiant, warning Europe that if it calls this an invasion, he'll open his borders and send 3.6 million refugees their way. Already tens of thousands are on the move. We met Najat Suleiman and her family. She says they fled after seeing civilians and children targeted in the strikes. She asked us, why did the Americans flee? Her 11-year-old son Mustafa lost his voice after hours of screaming in fear. With a strained voice, he tells us he was afraid for his life.
This is just the second day of bombing, and already you're just seeing people by the side of the road. They were in a van, they've got no belongings with them, they've got nowhere to go, they've got nowhere to stay.
We watch them clamber into the back of a passing truck and head off. With nowhere else to go, they say they'll sleep in the desert. After this assault was launched, the president called it a bad idea. But that came just days after the White House announced the Turks were moving in and US forces were moving out of the area. The president pressed again.
I hope we can mediate, John. I hope we can mediate.
Would you support sanctions?
I don't think we want to go back in. Let's see what happens. We are going to possibly do something very, very tough with respect to sanctions and other financial things.
The US is moving a number of high-value ISIS detainees out of prisons in the area, including 2 of the so-called Beatles, who were responsible for the high-profile execution of more than 24 Western captives, including American journalists James Foley and Stephen Sotloff. Now, Kurdish officials responsible for almost 10,000 ISIS prisoners are warning the fighting here means an increased risk of a mass breakout. Ian Pannell, ABC News, on the Syrian-Turkish border.
Our thanks to Ian Pannell there. It seems the NBA has a lot of work to do in repairing relations with China. A preseason game between the Lakers and Nets went ahead of schedule Thursday in Shanghai. There was none of the usual fanfare. The game was not on Chinese television, and both teams were silenced when their media sessions were canceled. The rift between the Chinese and the NBA stems from how the league dealt with a tweet from a team executive supporting protesters in Hong Kong. The Nets won the game by 3 points.
And a hero from a Colorado school shooting is now protecting the country.
Private First Class Brendan Biley recently graduated from Marine Corps boot camp in San Diego. In May, the 18-year-old helped stop the mass shooting in Centennial, Colorado, which left 1 person dead and 8 others hurt. Brendan says the attack reinforces resolve to become a Marine.
Wow. Well, coming up, it's hard to believe it's been 1 year since Hurricane Michael. Ginger Z goes back to Florida to see how the hardest hit community is recovering.
But first, the dangerous invasive species of fish that can live on land. What authorities are urging people to do about it after this. Welcome back. We turn now to the developing story from North Carolina. A 3-year-old girl reportedly kidnapped from a playground has been found safe.
Investigators say a phone call from a church helped them find her, and now the search is on for the woman suspected of taking her. This morning, relief for a community in North Carolina.
I've got 30 years in law enforcement, and very seldom do we have this good of an outcome.
A 3-year-old girl has been found alive nearly 24 hours after police say she was abducted from a playground. Investigators received a call to their tip line last night saying Alora Lindement was spotted at a Christian center in Greensboro, 6 miles from where she was last seen.
Currently inside the church with the caller.
We're out with the little girl.
10-4, is it the little girl?
10-4, yes.
Police say Alora was able to tell the caller her mother's first name and was then taken to the hospital where she was reunited with family. Alora's older siblings say they witnessed the kidnapping, claiming a woman approached them near the merry-go-round and grabbed their sister.
Eventually, Alora was seen leaving the actual playground area with that individual. She is the key. We must locate her.
The suspect in the case seen on these surveillance pictures has not been identified. People in the area now in fear that a child abductor is on the run, but police say there's no reason to believe that she's a serial predator.
Do you have any reason to believe that people in the immediate area need to be concerned about someone going around the city snatching kids?
There's no evidence that's going to lead us to tell that we're going to have another one of these occur in any time soon.
Police also say the suspect has no known connection with the girl's family.
Let's check our notifications now, starting with a student who went above and beyond using the ancient art of invisible ink for her paper on ninjas.
So she's actually studying ninja history in Japan. She crushed up some soybeans and figured out what kind of paper worked best to be heated up and show her work. So she turned it in. It looked like it was blank, but it wasn't. She got a good grade. Next up, it's officially fall. Take a look at the colors in Maine, captured from this drone.
It's fall, y'all. It's so beautiful. I love to see those leaves changing like that. It is so gorgeous. Oh, love it.
So that brings us to the question of the day. What's your favorite thing about fall? Love it. Is it the color of the leaves? Pumpkin spice, apple picking, scarves?
Please tell us in the comments or tweet us at ABC News Live.
You really got into
Scarf
that
weather.
I do love scarves. Businesses are getting creative during the... Anything else?
I like apple picking. Maze running as well.
Corn mazes.
Corn maze, that's it, yes. That's really fun.
Pumpkin spice apples. I saw this cartoon on Instagram the other day, like a drawn cartoon that it was like someone picking apples with his mom, and he was like, "Can we just skip the charade and go right to the donuts?" That's what it's about.
Yes, it's about the donuts, definitely.
Businesses are getting creative during the historic blackouts in California.
In many places, it's cash only, no credit cards, and handwritten receipts. And we're seeing a lot of these pictures. People sitting at the bar with battery-powered lanterns next to their cocktails.
Meanwhile, workers at this salon are doing hair in the dark. By dark, we mean the lights aren't on. Reporter Wayne Freedom from our San Francisco station gave people a look inside.
You're doing coloring?
Yes, I'm doing a root touch-up.
In the dark?
In the dark.
And you can tell the color even though you...
Yes, we have the formula, and I've been doing it for years. So I've got it down.
Okay, so you're not worried, and you wouldn't want to miss a day of work?
No, I wouldn't. I have to be here for my clients, and if they want to come, I'm here for it.
Okay, so this is the entrepreneurial American spirit.
One estimate says the outages could cost the state's economy more than $2 billion.
So next to Tales from the Inside.
Mike, the Situation Sorrentino of Jersey Shore has opened up on co-star Snooki's podcast about his time serving 8 months in prison on fraud charges.
Wait.
Yep.
Snooki
has a podcast.
Well,
surprise.
You learn something new every day. So the Situation has some pretty interesting things to say about his situation, including how he lost 40 pounds and now feels fantastic.
He also said that he crossed paths with Billy McFarland, who was serving a 6-year sentence for the Fire Festival fraud, and former Trump attorney Michael Cohen, who he said he asked to smuggle chicken in.
Interesting. I'm sure there's some stories being swapped there. And a bounty has been put on the head of a dangerous species of fish in Georgia.
Wildlife officials say a northern snakehead was found outside Atlanta. The fish is considered invasive, and it's able to breathe outside water. Snakeheads are native to East Asia and can be up to 3 feet long. Anyone who finds one is advised to kill it immediately.
That thing is scary. I mean, that would give me pause as well.
Yeah.
It's just... Ooh, look at the mouth. Are those teeth in there?
Somebody claims that they're actually supposed to be delicious, but I don't trust the person who's giving that review.
It was me. I said it.
So it was exactly 1 year ago today that Hurricane Michael blasted onto the Florida Panhandle as a deadly Category 5 storm, killing dozens of people and obliterating everything in its path.
Michael all but leveled the cities of Mexico Beach and Panama City. ABC's Ginger Z was there at the moment of impact, and this morning she returns to the scene to find a devastated community that's now closer than ever. Neighbor helping neighbor.
Well, the water was still up, remember?
Oh, yeah,
the
water was all over.
Kimberly Kennedy lost almost everything a year ago.
But there were so many cars in the canal. There were piles of houses. There were rooftops over there.
That was the day that Hurricane Michael made landfall just east of Panama City, shredding the Florida Panhandle.
This is Unit 201. This would be the room that you stayed in, that we survived the storm in. This is the old deck.
My team and I were right there. barricaded against the winds and the rain in a concrete condominium just across the street from that surging Gulf of Mexico.
I just saw something I have never seen in real life. I saw an entire home taken off of its foundation and rolled down the street. That is the type of storm surge we're talking about. My heart is racing.
A devastating Cat 5, the strongest to make landfall since Andrew in 1992. Mile after mile destroyed, more than 1 million homes without power. 50 Floridians lost their lives and tens of thousands lost their homes. We reported inside that eye wall as the storm surge reached 14 feet.
Right under us.
Coming dangerously close to us just 1 floor below. That was the day when we first met Kimberly.
We saw that house taken off its foundation, but there were also several houses right there.
Yeah, there were 3, a triplex there and a house, and then 1 house in the back.
Today, she said in Mexico Beach, it still feels like they're just trying to survive.
And you're just starting to see things reopen now.
Yes, yes, which is very exciting. It takes 10 steps to complete one. You know, it might be a food truck instead of the restaurant, or it might be a Connex pod instead of the store. I mean, there's no home for people to live in, so a lot of people are in RVs.
And amidst the devastation, we discovered acts of kindness. Just about an hour's drive away in Youngstown, Florida, we meet Shelly Summers.
So this is my backyard. I have 2 people, 1 in each one of those. And then, of course, we have regular tents with tarps over them. Unfortunately, with the sun and the rain, they have to have a tarp.
After the storm displaced thousands of people, Shelly and her family decided to help.
We saw on the news the local tent city. And my first reaction to her and her dad was, this is not right. We have to do something.
So they opened their own doors and took in their neighbors. Her backyard, now filled with tents, is a welcome shelter for people like Georgia Richter.
I've got my bed right here, a little AC unit, and then I've got my belongings in here.
There is thousands. There's thousands of people still displaced and homeless from the hurricane. There's people everywhere living in cars, living in tents. The community has pretty much lost itself, and a lot of people feel that they just don't matter. They do to me, they do to my husband, they do to my daughter, and they do to everybody here. So, like I said, it's just a drop in the bucket.
1 year later, they'll admit they're strong, but it has been hard, and they're still in need of help, hoping that they have not been forgotten.
We're still recovering. Don't forget about us. We're still down here. Hello.
Yes.
We're still here. We might be little, but we are still here, and we still matter.
For Nightline, I'm Ginger Z in Mexico Beach, Florida.
All right, coming up, we've got to look at what's going on in the day ahead.
Plus, what Mark Zuckerberg says Facebook is working on that could read your thoughts. Ooh, after this. Here's what to watch out for today on this Friday. President Trump will host the Little League Baseball and Softball World Series champions and meet with the Vice Premier of China on trade negotiations before traveling to Lake Charles, Louisiana for a campaign rally.
Meanwhile, House investigators expect the former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, to appear before committees looking into whether or not President Trump committed impeachable offenses and asking a foreign country to investigate his political rivals. However, the State Department could demand that she not appear, as it did earlier this week with the ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland.
The union auto workers striking against General Motors are holding rallies this morning at GM's Technical Center in Warren, Michigan. 49,000 workers are on strike for higher wages, lump sum payments, and better pensions. Workers have lost nearly $635 million in wages since the strike began nearly 4 weeks ago, and GM has lost more than $1 billion in profits. GM's CEO has now reportedly called for a new meeting with the union.
Democratic candidates for president are on the campaign trail. Senator Elizabeth Warren is scheduled to attend a pride parade in Las Vegas. Senator Amy Klobuchar will participate in a domestic violence roundtable at UCLA, and Andrew Yang, Tulsi Gabbard, and Steve Bullock campaign in New Hampshire.
Plus, don't forget to tune into the debrief for an update on all our top stories, in the briefing room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics. And finally from us, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg says his company is working on its own version of thought control. Zuckerberg says his staffers are developing wearable and implantable items that can read signals from our spinal cords.
The goal is to be able to control objects in virtual reality. Scientists say implantables would be able to decode inner speech in real time. eventually the technology could help people with limited physical ability. So it could have some positive effects, but
I saw that movie.
Inner speech in real time. How do you stop that word vomit if you don't even let it out?
What women want, what men want. Remember that, the remake? Those two movies, I saw them, and I thought, God, I'm glad nobody can hear these thoughts.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just say them out loud, and Janae loves it.
If only you knew what I was thinking. That's it from us today.
I do, though. I really do.
Have a great weekend.
We'll see ya.